You're listening to Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leanne on the Prime Sports Radio Network. And on today's show, Andrea will update the latest from the WTA Finals in Singapore, including a preview of the semifinals with the latest match analysis and much more, as Prime Sports Tennis on Prime Sports Network starts now. All right, it's Friday, the 27th of October, 2017. Thanks again for tuning in to Prime Sports Tennis with lead tennis analyst and former top 15 player in the world, Andrea Leanne. So, Andrea, before we get into the matches yesterday and preview of the semifinals, what are your thoughts so far from what you've seen this week?
Well, we're just seeing one surprise after another. We've seen some dispirited performances from the top stars like Muguruza, but we're seeing some incredible performances from our new rookies like Caroline Garcia. And this is an absolute predictable things that happen when you have a changing of the guard, Greg. And that's what we're seeing right now. It's right happening before our eyes. We have a changing of the guard. We've seen Svitolina jump into the top 10 for the first time this year. Caroline Garcia jumps into the top 10 within 2 weeks of winning back-to-back titles in Asia. We've seen Halep go to number 1 for the first time. Muguruza, Pliskova, number 1 for the first time this year. So lots of changes. And you see some that type of evolution occur, there's going to be a lot of tension, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. How to adjust, how to acclimatize to these new positions in the game. And so it's not surprising we see the veterans like Venus Williams holding firm, the most stable of anyone this week, performing at the highest standard of excellence every time she walks out on court. She has been the most predictable because she has the most experience and she's just been there. She's done it. The learning curve for her is so far greater at 37 years of age, and that has not been a deficit for her this week. That's been the strength for her because the other girls really have had trouble adjusting. And we see even Caroline Wozniacki looked absolute perfection the 2 matches, but then comes out today against Garcia and should be the modicum of mental strength, but actually really got into a snit out there. We have no idea why. She seemed out of sorts. She got into a little bit of a tiff with the umpire. She's won the first 7 games of the match, 6-0, 1 love. I mean, rolling right through again. Another bagel set for her in this WTA Finals. And then all of a sudden, thought Garcia tipped a ball, asked the umpire, wasn't happy, got a little bit tiffy with the ball kids, and then, of course, the audience, and then did like a towel on the court. So she was very uptight, and you could see that in her play, even when she was ahead, even when she had one opportunity after another to close this match out, including at 5-4 in the third set. She was up 5-3, up 4-2, had the early break, really had all the momentum, just was not able to do it. The serve definitely hurt her in the end. 21 unforced errors, 6 double faults. And, of course, most of that came in this last set, which was almost an hour long. But you have to handle it to Caroline Garcia. She has just absolutely played, perfect controlled tennis out there. The most interesting stat to me in the entire match was the fact that when the point got over 9 shots, Garcia won them, the majority of them, 67%. And you would have thought that would have been Wozniacki's forte. The longer the point, the more she'd wear down Garcia, the more unforced errors she would see. But in fact, it was Garcia that, as the point went on and got longer and longer, picked up momentum, gained rhythm, and gained confidence and pushed forward and was able to come in and close it out. We forget she was the number 1 doubles player in the world with Milanovic. She does have that capacity to come in and put the volleys away. It was a serve that was always vulnerable, but she got enough in. She got 76% of her first serves in. She did have 31 winners, 33 unforced errors, and she was able to break 5 of 13 times. So she was all over the Wozniacki serve with 13 breakpoint opportunities and was obviously able to convert in those last games. But you know what, Greg? Even in those last games, Caroline had chances. Wozniacki had chances and just mentally was not able to pull through. She just got too agitated out there for whatever reasons. The good news for her is that she's into the semifinals and she doesn't have to play Venus, who she's never beaten in her entire life. She's 0 for 6 against Venus. Now she'll play Pliskova. She's 5-3 on Pliskova, but Pliskova's had better luck against Caroline in the last few meetings. Yes, Caroline finally beat her at the Canadian Open, but Carolina was able to turn it around in Cincinnati a week later and beat her. She's got all the offensive play, the big shots, the big serving to do so on this surface. It's going to be really a question of whether Caroline can really turn her mental approach around and have that same type of positive attitude that she had in the first two matches.
So if Wozniacki would have won, she would have faced Venus? Or is that
if
still...
Wozniacki had won, she would have gone in as the top of that group. Now she goes in as the number 2 of her group, and Caroline Garcia goes in as the number 1. And there are lots of different combinations we can go through. We're not going to make it complicated. The bottom line is, after Garcia won, had Halep won her match, Halep still would have been in that number 2 slot.
Yeah.
And so all Halep had to do is beat Svitolina. But Halep lost in straight sets. So that allowed Garcia then to become the head of the group, the number 1 player. So she will go in and face the number 2 player of the other group, which is Venus. And Caroline Wozniacki will play Pliskova, who, quite frankly, is probably a better matchup for her right now.
I mean, how does I can understand a little bit of the stress when you're because I understand everything that could come into feeling pressure of what's going on this week. What doesn't make any sense at all is feeling pressure when you don't have to win the match and you're winning big. And I mean, I know you just said you don't understand it, but
I think this has been a long week. It's been a long year, quite frankly. Greg Wozniacki has been over there for multiple weeks now. Let's not forget she played the Japan Open. She has been over there longer than any other player. She did go to Thailand for vacation in between Hong Kong and Singapore, so she did try to relax, get all the nerves off. Look, you have these things that happen. Wozniacki she's a human. She can falter too. And what's interesting though is that all the opportunities she had, even at 5-4, in the double faults and the unforced errors off the backhand, the inability to return serve off the backhand, to me just says that Caroline was tight. She was agitated for some reason. And, both of these women are coached by their fathers. And I have to applaud Garcia's father, who came out. And every time he has come out, he's just taken the pressure off his daughter. And he said, look, this is your first time here. I don't want you getting upset. I don't want you having to worry about what the result is. I want you to focus on having fun, enjoying yourself, and playing your game. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. And it's that type of attitude that really prevailed for Garcia. She didn't play great tennis, Greg, today. She played okay, but not great tennis. But she was able to capitalize once she got the momentum in the end and just hang in there. And what was interesting is we've seen her maturity. We've seen her evolution right here this week in the fact that she has been able to stick in these points longer and work the ball around and wait for the right shot to come in on. And usually she would have come up with many more unforced errors. She would have played mentally, very spotty. That's what she's characteristic for. But this time she held firm. She stuck in there every single point. And this is the standard of excellence we've seen in Venus. And now she has really shown a standard of excellence at the same par. Every single match she has played, she has been consistent both mentally and physically, and that's why she comes out top of this group.
And she's also been dominant in these 3-set matches. I mean, wow.
Yeah, there was a stat that she's come back now against Svitolina, against Barty, and now against Wozniacki. And you know what? She definitely plays better from behind when she has nothing to lose and there's no pressure. She definitely swings more freely. She definitely was putting more spin on the ball, which was keeping it in. But I think, again, it goes back to that stat that she was winning the long points. And that is the biggest change in Garcia in this year from last year. She's able to hang in there and work the point around and have the patience and maturity to know that she will find the right ball if she just waits for it to come. And and that's what she did, really. She just really worked the point around and waited for Caroline to hit a short one, and then she came in on it. And she also had no trouble taking advantage of Caroline's unforced errors. I mean, for Caroline to have 21 unforced errors is quite a lot.
All right, now, before we get into the semifinals preview, we have the Svitolina Halep match we want to talk about. And just before we went on the air, I was able to find a couple of clips from the press conference. And speaking of being uptight, listen to the opening sound of the press conference from Halep and exactly how she answers this first question.
How It's the end of the season, and you must be relieved, but what are your feelings after that?
Well, first, it's good. It's a good feeling that it's over because it's been like a marathon the last months. Many things happening and also a bit of pressure. So yeah, I think I played better than Wozniacki's match, and this was my goal actually. Of course, I did everything I could and I wanted to win it, but just didn't happen. She played really well and she deserved to win. I'm not sad. Of course, I'm upset that I lost, but it's been a great year and I'm happy to go to the holiday now.
Yeah, interesting that, I mean, that's just showing you right there that in some ways, you tell me, is it almost like, is it possible for a player that's dealing with so much pressure to actually kind of have this something inside of them that even while they're playing, they're not really giving it their all because it's almost like...
I don't think so. I think, they keep asking Halep about her feelings. If I have to hear one more question about her feelings, the feelings are just a reaction to the result. It's what goes into the result that is really what's important. It's the thinking, and no one will ask her about the thinking. What was your game plan when you went out there? What were you trying to do? What was the style of play you were trying to perform out there? And this is what is important when Halep goes back off season and reevaluates everything with Darren Cahill, her coach, because this is really the question marks, and this will actually uncover the answers for her. To me, it was very simple out there, as it was with Wozniacki's match in Halep, and that Halep played a different style. In the Garcia match in Beijing and on clay, she played her clay court, counterpuncher, defense style, the style that had gotten her through an entire career of enormous results and success. She is a counterpuncher by nature. She plays defense better than anyone, and she has built a career on fight and on fitness and athleticism. And so you have someone who comes in here, obviously, always trying to evolve, always trying to improve. The coach, that's the coach's job, is to try and make her better, add new dimensions to her game. And it's not unreasonable for Cahill to want her to develop a more offensive side as well, so she can play defense and offense, so she can take control of the point sometimes and doesn't have to rely on her opponent's errors. But unfortunately right now for Simona, what is very clear in this week is that she cannot play both right now. Either she has to play defense or she has to play offense, but she does not understand how to blend the two. And so when she went out to play Garcia in her first match, she wanted to win it. She played defense. She played her style. She had no trouble. She went out against Wozniacki, was going to try and blow her off the court with some big offensive game, and got her head handed to her. So in this match, she was trying to do both, but still does not have command of those two styles in one game. And that is something either she'll have to work on or she'll have to say, look, I got to number one in the world. I've had a career, very successful career based on being a counterpuncher and defensive player. And, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And had she gone out there to get against Svitolina, who quite frankly was ready to go home herself, as was evident in her press conference yesterday, where she was teary and crying and didn't even know she was still in contention for this event. But has Halep gone out and just played her clay court game, her counterpuncher game, and shown Svitolina that she was so mentally tough she was going to wear her down and wait for her to make the error, I think she would have won the match. It would not have been pretty. It would not have been as terrific as seeing her come in and take advantage of some short balls and hit more offensively and flatly and hit those winners, but she would have won. And so that's really what the question is. It's not a question of what's right or wrong. It's a question of what works for Simona. Some players can blend the two. Some players can play both. Some players can play only one. Garcia actually has always been known as an offensive player. She had no defense. That is what she has learned in this last 3 weeks, is that you have to play defense, you have to work the point, and wait for the right ball to attack. And you have to have that patience. For Simona, it's different. She's always done the exact opposite. She's worked the point around and worked the point around until the opponent finally is so exhausted they make an error. And she has never really wanted to take advantage of the short balls. And for good reason, though, Greg. When you listen to Simona, it's all about, I need to feel the ball. I need to feel rhythm. And when you go up to the baseline and try to take the ball earlier and take it a little bit more flatly in the shot, it changes the timing and it changes the rhythm and disrupts her stroke. And when she loses rhythm and when she loses timing, as she said to Darren on one of the changeovers, then everything just unravels. And mentally, she does unravel. And yes, at some point, she's going to have to realize when things don't go well, you can't just say, oh, well, I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a backup plan. You have to go back to what you do well. And that is where she needed to hear what Darren said to her in Washington, D.C. Go back to your clay court game. Go back to doing what you do well. You do your best Simona for me out there. You do what feels good to you. And it's not that he is wrong in anything he has said. He has been correct. But when he went out there and said to her, you got to put some more spin on the ball, try some height to her backhand, work the point around, and also, but then he also said to her, and see if you can zigzag in and, cut off some of those forehands and get into net a little bit more. That is saying to her, you're talking about defense and you're talking about offense. Pick one. I only can do one out here.
Yeah.
And that's where the confusion comes in, and that's where you see the negativity come in. And that's something they're going to have to discuss between the two of them as to what kind of resolution they're going to come about for the next season. Because to me, that is the big question about Simona's game, and that has been clearly evident in this week.
And then the the last clip, question regarding the round-robin format.
My question was actually sort of similar, but it sounds like you were aware of the scenarios before the match. Normally, for a tennis player, a match is either must win or not. You're used to week having to win a match. I just wondered if the round robin format, does it maybe add pressure or extra complications?
I just told to my coach before the match that this system I don't like. You stay in the stress all week. Even if you lose, of course, you have another chance. But I just want to be you lose, you go home. You know something, or yes or no. So, but it's good for some players that are losing the first match. They have another chance. So I always win the first one and then I lose. So it's not a good thing for me. But maybe I can improve the next years.
Have you heard anything else about any of the players?
Well, no, not at all. And this absolutely is consistent with what we have just saying is her mindset, her way of thinking on court. It's the same as off court. She wants everything black and white. It's either defense or offense on court. It's either win or lose in a draw off court. So there's nothing new to me about that with Simona. She had 22 winners today, more than Svitolina. Who cares? She didn't win the match. So, and her thinking is that, I played great in my first round, and then I have to play 2 more rounds, and I don't know if there's too much confusion. There's not enough clarity here. There's too much gray in this system of round robin. And so for her, it is a little bit of a struggle. It is a little bit more of an extra pressure. And that's something, as Pam Whitecross, the WTA supervisor, has told players on and off court, you have to learn to adjust to. You have to learn to be resourceful. You have to learn to think for yourself and use your head and realize that these are the rules, and you have to find out a way to win in those capacity. And this is where Simona does need to grow and understand that she does need to be a little bit more flexible in her thinking. She does need to be a little bit more resourceful, and things are not always black and white. Of course, that goes, the tour is not going to change the format. Everyone loves the format. And we've had plenty of people, including the commentators. We heard Mary Pierce today. We heard Kim Clijsters today saying the exact same thing, by the way, Greg. They reiterated everything I just told you today about Simona Halep. But they have been in the position before. Mary says, look, I remember, you can lose to someone and then you can win the tournament still.
Sure.
Or I can beat someone in the round robin and I end up losing, have to play them again, and you have to beat them again, which is always much tougher. And so there is a little bit of juxtaposition there and adjustment you have to do, because it is tough to have to beat someone twice in the same event, or it is tough to have this round robin and know there's so many variations you need to get into the semis and move forward. But that's part of the game, and that's part of this event. And so that's what makes it so intriguing to the fans and so intriguing to everyone around it, and it has so much corporate sponsorship because it's something fresh and different from what we see all year. So that's not going to change, and I think it's up to Simona, though, to decide how she wants to approach her tennis, because that is something she's in control of, and that is something she can do.
Yeah, I mean, this is the closest thing that tennis can get to a playoff format, and that's what every league and every sport has and likes to interject at least once during the season, and so this is the way to do it. And as you said, she's just going to have to deal with it and learn how to.
Well, it's been a great format. Let's face it. How often do you go? And by the way, the men do the same thing on the ATP Tour, because the idea is to create rivalries, to create great matches, to see your top players playing against each other time and time again, day in, day out. And that's what this this is what this format does. It allows you to see the top 8 girls play each other head to head, day in, day out. And this is something that the tours try to strive for overall with the other events, is to try and create a package where the top players are playing each other more often, so it creates rivalries and more mainstream audience attention and interest. And that is what makes the sport grow. And so that's why this format is so important to that, because it does make the sport grow. We are seeing the most important players in the game facing each other and all that entails. And so that's what the excitement is about. Look at Venus. She beats Ostapenko and then ends up being Muguruza, and she's through. And she's looking pretty good right now. Pliskova wins her first 2 so easily and plays horrendously against Ostapenko, takes the day off before the match, but she's through. So we don't know where she is. So all these different elements and the mystery and the really create a lot of suspense for what is now going to happen on the weekend.
Yeah, and we take a look at that first. The one that intrigues me the most as far as the 2 semifinals is Venus and Garcia, because I'm rooting for both of them. I mean, how can you not? I mean, Garcia, breakthrough season, really breakthrough last couple of months. And we've talked all about Venus this year, about whether or not she actually does deserve to be the player of the year. And this is her opportunity to really kind of, whether anybody wants to give it to her or not, with an actual award or any sort of presentation or making anything official. Fact is, if Venus winds up winning this thing, as you talked about on the Hot Shots report the other day, why shouldn't she be player of the year, in theory?
Well, she is player of the year. I can tell you that right now. Whatever she does in the semis, she actually has a real shot to win this entire event. And can you believe that? Venus Williams, 37 years of age. She is, without a doubt, to me, the player of the year. Just for what we said, she has provided the highest standard of excellence in every time she's walked on court, be it the first round or the last round. And that, to me, when you are able to do that, as Martina Navratilova said yesterday, when you are able to have such great habits that every time you go out there, you're there mentally, physically, and 2 feet in with the match every single time with that confidence. That is what you look for in someone as player of the year. But look, she's 1-1 with Garcia. She did lose to Garcia in Wuhan years ago. Garcia won that 7-6 in the third. So I think it's really up to Venus to play her style, nothing different. She's got to serve well. She's got to get that first serve in. She's got to, play first strike of tennis. But she, to me, has more experience in this situation. She's not going to get as flustered as Wozniacki did today.
Yeah.
And she has more weapons. And Garcia is not used to playing offensive players. She's been playing these counter punchers, Greg, and doing very well, like Svitolina, Wozniacki. And so I think that this is a better matchup for Venus.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that if she executes, she has a good chance to win. For Garcia, she's got nothing to lose again. She's on a streak. We know that when she builds momentum in the early rounds, she's able now to carry it out to finish the job. She knows that the number 1 ranking may be in sight for her as well if she can win this. So, there's a lot of smiles in this match. It's just a win-win for the tour to have Venus in there and Garcia. You have the new guard, the old guard, contrast, and I think this is going to be a great match of execution, finally, of shot making. And we're going to see a lot of winners. We're going to see some unforced errors. I think that it's going to depend on also how well Venus moves, what her fitness is, how she feels physically, compared to, again, Garcia's nerve. Can she continue to maintain that nerve, that verve, and continue the momentum through? I don't think she played great tennis against Wozniacki, but now she's learning she doesn't have to do so to win a match. And so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of consistency she brings to the table when she faces a much bigger hitter in Williams.
Yeah, I would definitely think Venus should be the favorite to win this championship now, because, look, if it wasn't for Serena in the Australian Open, if it wasn't for Muguruza at Wimbledon, if it wasn't for Sloane at the U.S. Open, I mean, Venus could have won a couple of Grand Slam titles this year. So I don't see any of those players that we just talked about peaking, looking like they're unstoppable, like the other players did that she faced in those Grand Slam finals, or those Grand Slam events.
Well, I think that yes, against Muguruza and of course her sister as well, they just played great offensive tennis and were able just to keep Venus off balance and were able to handle her power. It's going to be interesting to see how Garcia handles Williams' power, how she returns serve. How she serves herself. That is the most vulnerable part of her game right now, is that serve. It's an abbreviated motion. It has a tendency to lose rhythm, go off sync, and she does have some double faults in there. So, again, this will be a question of how Venus returns serve, because as Venus herself said, the two most important shots in the game are the serve and return of serve. And it will be no more important than in this match, in this semifinal.
And then you have the two players who looked really good in their first couple of matches, and then both of them wound up losing their final match in the round robin, Pliskova and Wozniacki. So they're going to get together, and we really don't have any idea exactly what to expect based on how they performed in their last matches.
And Pliskova's had an extra day. And before her last match against Ostapenko, as I mentioned, she took the day off. She didn't play. I don't know if that's really advised to do in such a big event like this, but she obviously was so relaxed she didn't really feel the need to. And she felt that the day off to give her body a chance to recover was more important. And that's okay, because Pliskova can come back and she can throw off that win to Ostapenko and blow it off, let it roll off her back. And now she's got Wozniacki, though, who she knows she's going to have a battle with. And this is going to be a battle because she knows she's going to have to play a lot more balls and she's going to have to run. And the one thing Carolina doesn't like to do is run. So it's going to be interesting to see how she is able to play first strike tennis, to take command of the points as early as possible from the serve and the return. Her service return will be very, very important in this match because Caroline up until today has been serving so well and so effectively and placing the ball so accurately. But to me, I give the edge to Pliskova in this one. She seems to like to play Caroline, and she seems to have a little bit of a psychological edge against Caroline, even though she did lose to her once this year. And I think the fact that Caroline was so out of sorts today for some unusual reason, it's going to be a really quick turnaround for her to try and get herself back into stead. Obviously, someone as mentally tough as Caroline should be able to do it. She's a veteran. But she is going to have to also play defense, offense. She is not going to be able to just hang out behind the baseline and put the ball back because she was hitting too short today, and Pliskova will make her pay for that.
All right. So who is going to win?
The whole thing?
The whole thing. Venus.
You know what, Greg? The glory of this whole event is I actually don't know. I think any four of these women could win the event.
Sure.
I do think I think the matchups count. I think the matchups are very, very key. I think that Pliskova on paper still should win this event. I think either against Venus or Caroline definitely holds the edge there. And I am talking about Caroline Garcia. We have two Carolines. We have two Carolines and a Carolina.
That's true.
But I think that against either Garcia or Williams in the final, she would have the edge, whereas I think Venus or Caroline Garcia would have the edge in the final against Wozniacki. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think that's what makes this whole weekend so fascinating, is that we have so many different contrasts in styles and mentalities and backstories. We have two players who have their fathers as a coach. Pliskova has Renee Stubbs, brand new coach, just pinch hitting for this tournament. And then we have, of course, Venus Williams, who has David Witt, who, by the way, what an incredible mound of strength he has been. And her sister, Isha, is there. She has had the most consistent player support group, I think, of anyone through her career. She doesn't make changes. She is stuck to them. But they also understand that she's the one calling the shots, and she's the CEO of her company. And Venus takes the information, but she decides in the end how she's going to play. That's why you never see any on-court coaching with her, because she thinks for herself. So I agree, Greg. The sentimental favorite is obviously Venus. Everyone would love to see her win this and cap off an unbelievable year. But I also think that she does have the intellect and the shot making, the power to do it.
All right, Andrea, we'll look out for your final Hot Shots report tomorrow morning. Excuse me. And then we'll talk.
And you weren't even up at 3:30 like I was.
No, I wasn't. And listen to my voice. And then we'll of course wrap everything up on next week's show. So again, enjoy some more tennis real early in the morning, and we'll check out your Hot Shots report tomorrow.
Great. Look forward to it.
All right, so that'll wrap it up here for another edition of Prime Sports Tennis on the Prime Sports Radio Network. Don't forget to check out each live broadcast on demand after the show at primesportsnetwork.com or on our iTunes and YouTube pages under Prime Sports Network. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN, and make sure to tune in at the end of the season for our 2017 Aces Awards show, followed by our 2018 season preview special. Thanks again for tuning in to Prime Sports Tennis with Andrea Leanne on the Prime Sports Radio Network.